Once upon a time, in a kingdom nestled between silver mountains and emerald valleys, there was a flower of legend, the heart blossom. It was a delicate bloom glowing faintly in the moonlight, and it grew only in a hidden grove surrounded by ancient gnarled trees with leaves as old as time. The heart blossom was unique. It could heal broken hearts, but only under specific conditions. It couldn't simply be plucked and used at will. It had to be sought with a pure heart and an earnest desire to mend what was lost or broken. It would bloom only when the seeker's longing for healing was sincere. The legend of the heart blossom was passed down from generation to generation. Some said it was a myth, a tale invented to soothe those in grief, while others believed it was a rare miracle for those brave enough to seek it. And so, over the centuries, few dared to journey into the treacherous forest to find it. In a distant village, there lived a young woman named Astrid. She was gentle, with a heart that cared deeply for others, often helping those around her with selfless kindness. But a year ago, her own heart had been shattered. Her love had left her without reason, disappearing one bitter morning with no word or farewell. Ever since that day, Astrid had felt a quiet ache, a hollow where joy once lived. She tried to move on, burying herself in her work and the company of friends, yet every night the emptiness remained. One evening, Astrid overheard an elder telling the story of the heart blossom. She listened intently, each word stirring a small glimmer of hope in her soul. The elder described the forest of the heart blossom as a place of trials filled with brambles and shadows, and warned of the risks in seeking it. Astrid knew this was no small quest, yet she felt a pull within her, something that would not be ignored. The next dawn, she gathered her things and left for the mountains, determined to find the grove. Her journey was arduous. The path wound up steep slopes, through dense forests, and into valleys where mist clung thickly to the ground. Days passed, and each night she would sleep under the stars, clutching her memories and murmuring her hopes to the silent woods. Often Astrid would recall the joy she once felt, but her memories also weighed her down like stones. As she trekked, doubts crept in, whispering that no flower could mend what was truly broken. Finally, on the 5th day, she reached a dark part of the forest. The trees here were ancient and towering, their branches like dark fingers lacing across the sky, blocking even the faintest hint of sunlight. Astrid felt a chill creep into her bones. But she continued, each step seeming heavier than the last. The path became twisted and confusing. She found herself looping back to the same thicket of thorny brambles, unable to find her way. And then something curious happened. She began to hear voices, soft and sorrowful, whispering of past regrets, old losses, and bitter disappointments. They spoke to her own grief, echoing her sorrows back at her. At first she felt despair well up within her, but gradually she began to understand that these were not her memories. They were fragments of sorrow from those who had come before her, seekers who had given up and left pieces of their pain in the woods. Astrid paused, realizing that she too could abandon her journey here. She could surrender to her heartache, let the forest absorb her sorrow, and return to the village. She almost turned back, but a faint shimmer appeared through the dense trees, beckoning her forward. Summoning her remaining strength, she followed it. The grove appeared suddenly, as though the forest itself had opened up to reveal its secret heart. There, in a ring of pale moonlight, stood the heart blossom, ethereal and radiant. Its petals were a pale lavender, almost translucent, and its scent was indescribable, carrying notes of warmth and calm, like a memory of happiness long forgotten. Astrid knelt before the flower, feeling its light spill over her like a gentle balm. The air was filled with a profound silence, as if time had stopped to honor this moment. She felt an urge to reach out and pluck the flower, but something within held her back. Instead, she closed her eyes, allowing her heart to pour out its sorrow to the heart blossom. Memories of her love, the laughter they shared, the dreams they built, all of it came rushing back, filling the grove with a bittersweet melody only her heart could hear. As her tears fell, she felt the weight within her start to ease, like fog lifting from a valley after a long night. The heart blossom, sensitive to her sorrow, began to glow brighter, as if feeding on the outpouring of her grief. The light wrapped around her like a warm embrace, seeping into every crack in her heart, gently knitting it back together. When she finally opened her eyes, she felt changed. The ache was still there, but it had softened, transformed into a tender, quiet memory rather than a sharp, unbearable wound. Astrid felt whole again, not because the flower had erased her pain, but because it had allowed her to make peace with it, to carry it differently. As she turned to leave the grove, she glanced back at the heart blossom. It stood as beautiful as ever, awaiting the next seeker. Astrid left, carrying with her a newfound strength, a gentle warmth where there had once been only sorrow. The forest no longer felt dark and twisted, and the path back home seemed clearer, as if the world itself had brightened. In time, Astrid returned to her village. She continued her life, but with a heart that was stronger and wiser. She helped others with a greater understanding of loss and healing, never once mentioning the heart blossom, but quietly guiding those who sought it toward their own journeys of healing. And so the legend of the heart blossom lived on, whispered from one generation to the next, its flower blooming forever in a hidden grove, waiting patiently for those brave enough to seek its gentle, unyielding light.